Howdy of you delicious people, I'm here today to talk about Frankenstein 2025. For those of you that have gone on to see the Mary Shelley Frankenstein Robert De Niro piece, you probably very much have a certain opinion upon this movie, because it's pretty much just like a remake of that film, with the exclusion of certain things to go on and be adjusted to try and be different than that film. But feasibly, it's, for the way it begins, the way it ends, pretty much the same. There's just stuff tweakingly changed in between. I will go on and I will explain that so you'll get the understanding of why this movie does have, I think, some interesting points about it. But most of the time, this movie is to just be window dressing to look better than what is to have been the Robert De Niro film. So it just looks better, but story wise, it's not better, in my opinion. It really isn't. If anything, there's so much stuff in the other Mary Shelley movie that story wise is like, oh, okay, I can understand why Victor is driven to try and defeat death the way he is. And also, when we even get to this stuff that seems very similar to the other film, it feels very brushed off because, like, this movie just does not do the talky points well. To where I think a lot of the talky points are to be quickly forgotten by me, whereas the Mary Shelley dialogue parts I think linger a little bit longer. So we go on to make our way into this film of difference, and we come to find that Victor has a father named Leopold. Leopold, it seems, is to go on and be a dad that seems to really not go on and really like Victor. Plus, also, Victor will go on and state that he's much more of a mama's boy, anyways. Leopold goes on at some points to be very abusive to his son, and feasibly, we have the sins of the father carried out by the sins of the son, to realize that honestly Victor becomes his own father when eventually he is to seemingly be mentoring the creature. Victor goes on and creates this creature, as it seems that he has nothing else in his life to go on and honestly do. Because when Victor goes on and has a brother named William, which they're kind of distant between the two of them, and William brings along his soon to be wife Elizabeth. Victor goes on and takes a liking to this girl, but Elizabeth isn't really all that interested in giving Victor the time of day. Yeah, they might joke around and what have you, but ultimately it seems that everybody, the further and further we go into this piece, is to want to confess to Victor of how bad of a guy he is. Which, there could be some opinions of people seeing Victor and realizing that he is to go on and be misunderstood. But also, Victor is to be driven to be the smartest guy in the room, or to really just say that he's smarter than everybody, and that could just kind of be off-putting. And so Victor goes on and creates this monster seemingly through these puncture points of these metal kind of poking devices going through this monster. And we differently from the other film have this kind of cell phone battery thing that kind of tells us like that this monster is to be at 100% juice, as well as also it seems to use batteries to show to us how this monster ends up going on and getting the life that it does. So, but they talk about energy and electricity and yada yada yada, and they have to go on and also have this wood slab that shows us how the body is to look within it, so that way they can look at the back of a person, just like, oh yeah, I can definitely go on and put in, put certain things here and there, so that way this will work. So a lot of the actual explanation of things is just kind of hodgepodgery, when really the focus is on chopping up bodies and trying to find the perfect kneecap or the perfect uh, bone structure, or eventually just really needing to find the perfect body pieces out of an army of people, as there is to go on and be a war that is to have occurred within this movie. So Victor goes on and creates his creature, and eventually he is to go on and just be kind of disappointed in it when it doesn't walk out of the womb, so to speak, and start spouting Shakespeare. To where then Victor is to go on and be like, well, you know what, I've already kind of invested so much time in this thing anyways. Like, should I go on and try to find the new iPhone and and spend more time doing that? Because logically, this creature is to go on and and to have taken up way too much of my time for it to eventually be a thing that I have to really like teach them the fundamentals and how to read and write and so on and so forth, and Victor doesn't want to take that time. This is to go on and of course be a certain period piece. It's not a modern day thing, but if anything, there is stuff about this movie like umbrellas and having a wooden leg or a kind of steampunk leg prosthetic that is to be interestingly put in this film. And so, but now let's go back to the differences of this movie. So Victor becomes the villain of this story, where the creature slowly but surely becomes seemingly the hero. But it, but really, I feel that beyond Victor, there is no time cemented on really anyone else in this piece. So feasibly, like it gets to the point once we find out that Victor is the villain in this story, I don't really care about anyone else. And because at this point Victor hasn't really accomplished anything beyond creating this creature, and then even that, like, he's not willing to do anything after that. So it's like the only thing that anybody really accomplishes in this entire movie is just creating this creature, and there is not much that accomplishes elsewhere of after that. Maybe William is to accomplish way more than Victor does, but this guy is to be more off screen than on. We don't really have an Igor or Igor in this movie whatsoever, but if anything, Elizabeth does have an uncle that seems to be Moneybags McGee for Victor. And really, if there is to quite possibly be close to an Igor or an Igor, that guy, I guess, has to be it. Because default. So, we go on into this film, and have, of course, for those of you that didn't see the Mary Shelley film, we have Captain Anderson and his men of non-English speaking, mostly, crew, and They go on to crash land into the North Pole. They go on to seemingly try to dig themselves out of the ice that they are stuck in, as of course this is during the winter time, and they will stumble upon Victor and also stumble upon Creature. They go on to bring Victor into their ship to need to understand who he is and then eventually who the creature is also. And this crew somehow figures out a way to distance themselves from the creature long enough for Victor to tell his entire life story, which makes no sense to me. But, anyways, it happens. But the creature does somehow, off camera, make his way back onto the ship to eventually go on and confront Victor because the battle between both Victor and Creature needs to continue to consume. Or continue and consume one another. How both Victor and Creature, to where there's always going to be collateral damage. Because once the creature is to go on and be created, the creature eventually goes on to escape its tower and makes its way onto this farm to learn how to read and learn alphabet, and eventually spends time with this blind man. And once that relationship between both blind man and Frankenstein ends, Victor realizes that there's nobody left in his life but Victor, and so he has to backpedal and figure out where this guy lives so then he can go on and get what he wants out of Victor, which is just a companion. At this point, Victor is to go on and see just the creature as this old toy or relic that just never panned out the way he wanted it to. So when this guy is going on and talking about a companion at this point, Victor is just like, dude, you're old news. Like, I have no reasoning to do anything that you say. Plus, also, like, Victor at this point should have made his own woman because I don't think he'll be able to go on and be able to get Elizabeth at this point, who is to be willing to be marrying William, or is even to go on and be more infatuated with this creature to the point where that is what drives Victor after he is to have created him to want to go on and destroy him, because Victor is to, I feel, be to the point when William was to come into play, Victor's brother, and Leopold was being a lot better to William instead of Victor. Victor immediately was to go on and just be like, well, hopefully my father can die so that way I can just ship this brother off. And Victor, when going on and seeing that this creature is getting the William treatment, Victor is to go on and just be like, yeah, I just want to ship this thing off too. How can I just get rid of this thing? Like, if anything, this creature has been more of a burden on my life than something that is going to give me the Nobel Prize. So Victor goes on and faces off against this creature, as the creature is to say, hey, if you don't give me my companion, I will, of course, be driven into more rage than love. And it is to be, that line is to be kind of copied and pasted from the other film, because of course it is. It's to be the only thing that I think significantly is to be very similar to the other piece. So Victor and Creature fight. There ends up being collateral damage. Quite a bit of people that Victor is to really just like family wise um, love, but maybe not exactly care for. But Victor is driven in revenge because of their deaths. And Victor starts chasing after this creature to try to figure out ways to do it in, but this creature has a healing factor. No matter what this thing kind of is to be thrown at itself, to where we get stuff that ups the ante of other film like Dynamite and the like, hey, I'll give you a head start, and then and if this doesn't pan out, then I'm coming after you. But so we go on by the end of this piece, and Creature and Victor are to kind of have this one last bit of conversation between one of them, because Victor is human and Creature is to seemingly be everlasting, and it'll of course outgrow its father, who is technically Victor. So after that is to go on and happen, everybody is to start to uh, ride off in the sunset. As that too, the sunset is to be this important thing. We'll go on and we'll have Victor, who, when he is to first notice the creature kind of hovering over him at his bedside, he'll go on and he'll give him the sun, and eventually the creature will go on and seek out the sun as warmth. So, yeah, I've kind of, in too much of a way, I probably gave away a lot of this film, but it's basically a remake, anyways. You're not really missing much, but a lot of people will beg to differ. A lot of people will probably say that this is better than the Mary Shelley film. Um, but I just don't think story wise it really is. I think there's a lot more better things explained in the other film than this, but that's my personal opinion. I'm a person that likes story over window dressing. So this movie was to go on and just be fine, in my opinion. At least I'm to still figure out a way to thumbs up this movie. But really, I'm just saying that because it is to go on and have its points of interest. How it is to very much be a movie that did some modern day stuff, and like we see how strong the creature really is at certain points, but like there isn't more action in this movie probably compared to the other, or it's about the exact same amount of action, which happens in the very beginning of the piece, and then we have to wait basically 2 hours to get it again. And I'm like there could have been a lot more points where we could have really seen a lot more action. Like, yeah, you could probably say that the Frankenstein versus the wool stuff is also a little bit action, but like I'm more of the like human v human action aspects of movie and what have you. But anyways, so this movie also is probably linger too long on a lot of things, and really it makes this movie very challenging to watch. I would definitely not go on and say watch this in a theater, because I feel that you will probably go on and need a point of a break of this film, and it would be much better to probably stream it when it gets slapped on Netflix at some point. I will go on and also say that there are a number of bootleg apps that will probably be able to have you see this movie for absolutely free, but it's not really a crisp version right now. It's kind of a little blurry. It's kind of a little not subtitled perfectly, especially when we get to the non-English parts. So feasibly, you would probably end up being forced to watch the Mary Shelley Frankenstein thing, anyways, because that's fully in English. But anyways, so with that said, let's push on to the full-on breakdown, scene for scene, blow for blow of this movie that I haven't gone on to fully explain. So with that said, I'm going to pause here, get on my cast list, or I insist to go on and help me rattle this movie off, because at the end of the day, I still go out of my way to do those things. Any apps to go on and watch the bootleg version of this movie? You could probably go into Movie Box 3. That could quite possibly have a variation of this movie, and that is available on a Google Play Store. You can go on to a app that you may have to Google search. One is to be Zelliphonic, Zelivonic, or an app called Moopzzi, Moopzzi. You may have to go on and you might have to download an APK for this app, but I felt it was worth it, as I had gone on and downloaded this app and was to be able to see a number of things for absolutely free. If anything, there may go on and just be kind of one app that could go on and see a large variety of things compared to the apps that have already gone to the list here. But at the end of the day, for this one specifically, I'm kind of just tailoring for the specific movie and not having to say so many things. But anyways, let's go on and let's pause this here and figure out a way to just kind of get this movie done, so I can get this uploaded. Thank you for watching this. I know a lot of people will probably jump off at this point if they haven't earlier before and what have you, but I do thank and appreciate everyone who is going on to take that time of a movie that is basically a remake. It really is. I'm assuming that a lot of people probably figured that out anyways, and that is probably be their reservation of wanting to really actually check this out. So let me pause here. Let's get out the movie and stuff. Alright, so now that we've gone on to spoiler territory, you can really tell that this is a Del Toro piece. Because there is obviously like a visual beauty aspect to this film, but then also kind of like how the Blair Witch Project goes on and focuses for way too long about the map in that movie, where they just keep going back and back to it, and there's really not much else to remember in Blair Witch besides the tent getting battered, and the obviously iconic scenes from that movie, because all it really is about people bickering about a map. And really also in other Del Toro films, like like Hellboys and stuff like that are very good, interesting movies. But then again, also like you always get kind of a mixed bag with Del Toro of specifically his storytelling, that maybe could seem to be stuff that might just be too obvious. Of like, well, yeah, obviously this is a really good idea. Like, anyways, so, and plus we also get his flair of wanting to have another language besides English being put into a film, because we have movies like Pan's Labyrinth, where that entire thing is in a completely different language. Whereas in this movie, there is bits and pieces of it where it's not in English. So that is to go on and just kind of be the way that, of course, Del Toro just likes to do things. So let's get into this. So this movie again isn't as well explained as the other Mary Shelley films, so you're kind of forced to watch that movie to just get better story. So we would come to find this ship is to crash into the ice of the northern pole. And we have this captain that is trying to go on and discover the North Pole so that way he can get name recognition. And this captain is to be driven to discover this, even if it is to go on and cost his own life and the life of this crew. He just wants to make history. So we have this captain that is going on and forcing his crew to try to break through the ice so they can keep going. And by the time that they've been doing this all day, all night, they go on and by the night end up seeing a speck of flame. We go on to have the first mate or the I think they end up calling him something different. The chief officer. They go on and they hand him Captain Anderson these binoculars, and he goes on to make his way to Victor, who is to have fallen onto the ground, and he is to, of course, be taken ill. They go on and they drag Victor to their ship to figure out a way to keep him warm. And this crew and these dogs are to, of course, go on and spot that they are to be further not alone here. And I believe the dogs go on and they run off in this movie to chase after the creature like they do in the other film, but it's not as well shown here. So they drag Victor back to the ship, and what ends up happening is we see the creature making their way to Victor. The creature goes on and makes his way to the crew and starts throwing and beating them up and killing them in horrific ways. The creature makes its way onto the ship as the rest of the crew is to go on and be there as well, as to bring Victor into the captain's quarters to again try and warm this guy up. The crew fights off this creature to the point of them needing to go on and whip out this like shotgun of a weapon for this specific tailoring of time, and they blast this creature off of the boat. They pull the ladder, that of course is to have the creature not to be able to get back onto the boat. So the creature then goes on to use its strength to then push the ship to a certain kind of almost like tipping the boat completely over almost, but it doesn't quite get there. So they again whip out this shotgun like weapon and blast the ice around the creature, dropping him into the ice. And that gives us all the time in the world for Victor to go on and tell his entire life story. So the captain makes his way to Victor and they start finally speaking English. Victor will go on and ask the captain how many people has this creature killed of his, and so they list. Victor goes on and says that he will kill a lot more. He will kill all of you. And we, of course, have the captain who is to ask Victor, it's like, well, what kind of a devil of a thing would have made a creature like this? And Victor goes on and says, well, I did. I did. So we have Victor telling the captain that he needs to tell his tale, and so he does so. So Victor goes on to have to explain him being a young lad and how he was much more of a mama's boy, and how when his father was away, Victor spent so much time with his mother. So eventually, when Victor is to go on and find that his father is making his way back into town, we would, of course, go on and have Victor, that seemingly is to meet up with his dad, and is to go on and be spending some time with him at the dinner table. Leopold, Victor's father, is to go on and give the mother some food for her to go on and consume because it's best for the baby. She's eating for two. In all honesty, probably without this scene, you would probably not exactly know that this woman is actually pregnant. And also, it kind of made me quite easily forget about this scene when I was just kind of thinking about what to really say here. Victor is to go on and pray, or is to go on and seemingly consistently within dream sequences and so on and so forth have this weird angel statue that he goes on and talks and prays and whatever to. And this angel statue will eventually follow him into his dreams as this dark angel entity, which I guess that is to be the only thing that could make this movie different than other. So, the next thing we go on and do is have Victor talking to his father about the weight of difference between both male and female hearts, talking about the blood flows, and eventually, when Victor is to go on and get a bit of information not exactly right, we would go on to then have Leopold, who's to have Victor stand up and is to figure out what thing of body part to hit Victor with, or hit Victor at. And we have Leopold that is not willing to hit Victor in the hands because it's like, well, hey, your life is going to be of a doctor, and like I shouldn't hit you in the hands anymore because it's the instrument that'll help you in your later years. But if anything, I can hit you in the face because your face is be much more of a vanity thing. And like, yeah, if your face looks good, then it's gonna be uh, just for the women, and so yeah, that I think goes on to make sense. That this guy is gonna have to go on and focus more on his career than his love life because he won't be that attractive. Sadly enough, but it's true. So here's where we go on. We have Victor with his mother. They're going on and I believe playing cards together. We have Victor's mother that starts out, ooh, oh yeah, not having a good time, and Victor is to go on to realize that something is wrong. Victor runs his way to his father to explain that there's something wrong with, of course, his mother, because his mother is going to have a miscarriage, or to probably give birth to this other child, it seems, and it eventually will go on and be William, which Leopold will take too much focus on, and will, of course, go on to uh, have William be leading a better life than Victor was. Probably hence a lot of jealousy between Victor against William for how he had such a great life and how he has a wife and everything, and maybe Victor wants to go on and take that from him by figuring out a way to just be like, well, hey, I like this girl, she better like me instead of William. Anyways, pushing on. So Leopold goes on to get the wife, and they go into a separate room as Victor is to have a bloody vest. So the next thing we come to find is Victor's mother dies here. They put her in actually a really cool looking coffin. Man, if I ever was to go on and die, I want my coffin to look like that. It'll be effing expensive, but at least it'll look cool. Uh, so we would, of course, go on and have Victor, who will have a brother, where his brother is to go on and seemingly have more love by his father than Victor had ever gotten. And be seemingly given this like horse carriage as a gift and whatever, what have you. So Victor is to eventually go on and talk to Leopold and ask him if he really did do everything that he could possibly do to save his mother. And Leopold is to tell him, it's like, well, yeah, I did everything that I could. And Victor is to go on and say, it's like, well, yeah, well, you know what? I'm going to go on within my studies and I'm going to learn how to prevent death because, like, so that way I can go on and just be a better doctor than you. So we have Victor going on and having one of his dreams that is to showcase the Dark Angel. And so Victor goes on and makes his way back to the statue. And then the next thing we see in uh, in North Polian time period, we have the creature that's crashing from the ice to escape out. And then Victor is to go on and tell more of his story. So Victor goes on to tell us that his father did die. Oh wow, that's too bad. Because if anything, in the other movie, we have Victor's father that I think dies story wise in a much better manner, where the creature just goes on and kills him instead of like this guy just die. So like yeah, there's just so many things that is just like done differently in this movie, but probably not better. So we would of course go on between both Victor and William and just be like, okay, William, you're just gonna get shipped off. And so the next thing we really see is just Victor's college years, where he is to go on and be in a room full of professors and just people of all ilk, to the point of here is where Victor goes on and meets with uh, Elizabeth's uncle, who is to go on and be Harlander. Harlander? Sure. So we have Victor going on and talking about life and then also death. Because, like a ball that he goes on and throws into the air and recatches it, he talks about how being born is basically like rising and death is the fall. So Victor goes on and says, we rise and we fall, but if anything, we come to find that being birthed is kind of in God's hands. And death is to kind of be more of the challenge and trying to figure out who determines that. And as these people are to go on and obviously be doctors, we would go on to have Victor, who's like, well, like, we as doctors, we have to go on and deal with life and death. And we could probably have a responsibility to change death ever actually occurring and happening and what have you. So here is where Victor goes on and reveals that he's already been experimenting on trying to reanimate a corpse. So he reveals this display, and Victor is to mention how he has all these body parts of these random people, a carpenter, or so on and so forth. So Victor goes on to reveal this just kind of chopped up body, and the professors are looking on at Victor here, and it's like, well, this is all a good, nice bit of a trickery and a light show and what have you. But if anything, like, this corpse brain isn't probably fully functional, right? Like, there's nothing that this thing can wow us with, right? So Victor is kind of upset by these professors thinking that this is just some kind of trickery. So he tries to prove this to them, that this thing actually has a functional brain. So Victor goes on and chucks the ball at the monster, or the the assortment of bodily items, and it catches it. And so it's like, well, hey, that right there tells you that this thing has a functional brain. And then the further that they kind of do these things to prove that this thing has a way of understanding, and they continue to do that by having Victor ask the thing to give him back the ball, and it gives him that. And so it's like, yeah, so this thing has responses, and it is fully functional. So the professors think that this is an abomination, that it's barbaric for Victor to try to go on and reanimate his life. So they honestly want this to go on and stop, because it's honestly kind of going against God. So Victor goes on and shuts this thing down, and really just walks away from all this. As Victor is to go on and make his way through town, eventually he bumps into Harlander. Harlander goes on to talk to Victor about his experiment and how actually, or how in all honesty, he's really interested in his work. So also Harlander is to be delivering a message to Victor from William, who now has a wife to be known as Elizabeth. So the two of them are meeting by a number of circumstances, because they're eventually going to go on and probably be family here. So Harlander will go on and give Victor the picture of both William and Elizabeth, because Victor has not quite met Elizabeth yet. So Harlander wants to go on and fund Victor's experiment, and eventually get to a point where Victor is to want to fully assemble a new body and give it life. And so they go on to this, like, just kind of handshake agreement here, and Victor kind of goes about his day. Harlander is to go on and be taking a photo of this woman holding a peach. And the woman, it seems, is to just kind of have this process be taken so long that she is to start to eat certain aspects of said peach. Harlander kind of gets upset with her because of the symbol of this peach, and so on and so forth, because he of course is an artist. He wants to have things look a certain way. So we would push on here to have both Harlander and Victor meet up again. Harlander goes on and shows Victor here this wood slab that is to show the human body. So that way the two of them could go on and possibly better understand where to go with these certain puncture points to better try to reanimate a corpse. And so they go on and they look at this wood slab thing that shows a whole human body, and they start to figure things out. So we finally have both William and both Victor meet together, and it's been so long. William is to look fairly different than, and as well as also Victor from the last time that they've seen one another. And William is to go on and update Victor on how he is to seem to be having a life and a home and eventually a wife to marry. And so Victor is to go on and see said wife, who is Elizabeth. They aren't married, but eventually they will get married by the end of the film. So a wife to be, I guess. So Victor goes and meets up with said Elizabeth, and eventually they all share a table together. We go on to eventually have Elizabeth within this table start to talk about how she doesn't like the war. And she goes in depth about how it is such a waste for people to be battling the way they are, and so on and so forth. And it seems that Victor is to be the only one that is willing to hear this woman out, as both William and Harlander are to want to leave the table because they have either probably already heard this kind of thing from her, or they don't feel the same. So, as Victor is to completely hear Elizabeth out, it seems that he is to go on and like her more. And that is the reason why he is to eventually go on and be so infatuated with this woman. So, back in North Pole time, we have Victor that is still going on and talking to the captain, but the captain is to stop for a second and make his way back out to the ship to thrust binoculars into his eyes, realizing that the creature is making their way there. So, back into the story. So, William and or no wait. So here is where Victor and I believe Harlander, William and everybody, they're going on and they're making their way to this tower that is to be basically Victor's laboratory. So Victor is to go on and need to explain to Harlander all the stuff that he's going to need. And Harlander tells Victor, yeah, like I'll have this blacksmith who's willing to create anything that you are to ever go on and need. So, in all honesty, like Victor, who is to kind of make this whole lightning rod thing in the other movie, I think there's a lot of stuff when it comes down to the manufacturing of that stuff in the other film. I think it's to kind of be put a little bit better. Whereas in this movie, it's just like, hey, just give me these parts and someone else makes them. Yeah, like, and when I don't exactly like how it looks, like, then they'll just make it, yeah, a lot of is just happening off screen. It's just not that good as presented, but regardless. So the next thing we see is Victor going on and making his way to an executioner. This executioner is to, of course, go on and have a number of people all get killed at the same time. Victor is to look over at these executed people and need them to do stuff like open their mouths, and eventually, uh, the guy who opens his mouth is to probably die fairly soon, anyways. So it's good that this guy is going to go on and be given this death, or otherwise he's gonna die in a much more horrible manner later on. We'll also come to find that Harlander is to eventually get syphilis, and he'll seemingly die with a horrible death. To where Harlander, the reason why he was to go on and have this whole Frankenstein experiment be done so is because Harlander wants to go on and put his own brain within the body of this creature, and Victor will not go on and let it be a thing because Victor kind of wants to go on and just do his own thing, because I'm sure Victor is to go on and have certain reasoning that once Victor is to find out Harlan's illness, Victor goes on to state that, like, this is an illness that'll go on and infect Harlander's entire body, even his brain, to where Victor won't go on and get the best specimen. Uh, because, again, Victor wants to go on and have, like, the perfect body to the point of him needing the perfect kneecap, the perfect uh, heart, liver, lungs, so on and so forth. So, after Victor is to check out the executed people and want to, of course, use them for parts, Victor goes on and notices Elizabeth within town. He follows her with this umbrella, and Victor will come to find that Elizabeth is making her way into confessional. Victor is to honestly be curious about what Elizabeth could be confessing, and so he follows her into trying to figure out what confession she will go into, so he will in turn hear what she has to say. So, as Victor makes his way into a confessional room, and Elizabeth starts talking about her confession and how it's seemingly been a week's time since her last, and he's like, man, like, how much could you really accomplish within a week's time? And so Elizabeth is to go on and say, it's like, well, it's a sin against uh, my husband's brother. And Victor's like, oh, tell me more. So Elizabeth starts to go on and on about how this brother is like a horrible person and so on and so forth. And Victor is to start to choke up because it's like, really? So the further and further Elizabeth starts to talk, she is to go on and mention how she is to have known that this guy is also to have followed her. And so the further and further, Victor is to finally just go on and reveal that he's in this confessional, and Elizabeth is like, ha ha ha, I knew it. So Victor and Elizabeth go on and they're at this table together, And Victor is to ask her, it's like, hey, when did you know? And Elizabeth is like, dude, I knew the whole time. Like, you stick out like a sore thumb. So Elizabeth goes on and tells Victor what she is really interested in, and she's interested in these insects. We'll go on and we'll have her open this book, and there seems to be some drawings of some insects. We'll eventually come to find that Elizabeth is to be with Victor at some point, and they're trying to capture these butterflies, and they end up putting it in a bottle. But if anything, I think that happens quite a bit of time later. But anyways, so here's where we go on and we have the lightning rod that Victor is not satisfied with. Plus, also, Victor is starting to get distracted with the whole Elizabeth thing instead of focusing on this experiment. So, we would go on to have Victor, who's just kind of second handing a lot of his things to William, for him to go on and him to tell these people what Victor is to exactly want, that there's certain pieces that need more silver to them or metal to them, because it'll be better for this experiment. So Victor is to try to figure out how to reanimate this corpse and what part of the body will work perfectly for this battery to bring this thing to life. And as Victor tries and struggles here, we have Victor still going on and focusing on Elizabeth here, who's going on and I think playing the piano. Yeah, I think she's playing a piano here. So Victor and Harlander, they meet in a bathroom. Victor is to go on and want to leave the bathroom to give Harlander privacy, and Harlander's like, no, just stay here. Just continue to talk to me while I'm whipping this out and peeing, because who cares? So Harlander goes on to explain to Victor that their timetable of trying to figure out how reanimating corpses is going to work is starting to come to a close here, because if anything, there comes to be a time where they are to realize that there's a war going on, and with the war going on, there's going to be a huge assortment of dead bodies that are within a certain specific area. So if Victor can't go on and figure out how to reanimate a corpse, then he won't have all of these bodies to perfectly play with to find the perfect kneecap and perfect lungs and perfect liver and whatever. So Victor, of course, is to go on and be like, "Oh my god, like so I have to figure this out within a week's time," and so what also kind of helps this is when eventually both Elizabeth and Victor meet up again, because I think also Harlander is starting to see that Victor is taking a liking to Elizabeth, so he's going to try and snip that in the bud a little bit. But anyways, so when Victor and Elizabeth meet up, we have Victor that is showing Elizabeth his corpse. And so here is when Victor is to try to confront Elizabeth about how this is to go on and seemingly be an unspoken thing between the two of them. And Elizabeth isn't really all that interested. She does want to go on and want to pursue a relationship between her and Victor, so she leaves. Victor, after going on and slapping a bit of towel on him on his back, or on his face and then parts of his back, Victor is to go on and figure out the body part that he needs to reanimate a corpse, and he kind of presses the part of the back of his body to finally figure things out. Victor goes on and is to puncture this corpse to have it come to life. And then so Victor pulls the puncture point back out and the corpse dies. So Victor figures it out. So Victor goes on and makes his way to this battle scene and tries to get the best number of bodies. So the next thing we see here is just Victor, who is chopping up these body parts and sewing them all together. So Harlander goes on and is taking pictures of this body, and they're putting all the pieces of the puzzle together. And sewing up all the hands, they're sewing up all the eyes, and so on and so forth to the body, and they're mummifying this thing. And so here's, of course, where we get to the experiment part, where we're going to need a storm coming, and so Victor is to go on and explain to Harlander that there seems to be a storm coming and it's going to be the perfect night for them to try this experiment. Victor goes on to try to find Harlander to explain this, and that's when Victor comes to find that Harlander is actually sick with syphilis. Harlander is to go on and give Victor the timetable, and I think also in the other um, Mary Shelley movie, they go on and explain this whole outbreak going on, and Victor is adamantly not wanting to leave the town because he wants to create this monster, and it seems that uh, that part of the movie kind of echoes the prior. But anyways, so as Victor is to go on and get lightning rod and things of that nature just kind of put in place, before Victor goes on and gets the very last piece to be put together of this experiment, Harlander goes on to finally reveal to Victor why he had allowed him to do this experiment. Because Harlander wants his brain into this body, and Victor just does not want to go on and have this happen because it's not the perfect brain. Because honestly, with this guy's illness, he's kind of concerned about his brain working the way it could be worked. So Victor doesn't want this to happen. If anything, so much so because of how they're kind of arguing here, eventually this will lead to Harlander's death. Because at some certain point, there's to be this seemingly, like if you want to kind of reference 300, there's to be that pit in 300. Bizarrely, right as they're arguing, there's kind of this pit that's kind of in the middle of that spot, and Harlander like falls into it, and he falls to his death. But Victor does go on and get his last piece together, and goes on to find Harlander, like his body is kind of just dead the way it is, and Victor goes on to continue his experiment and finish up. Victor will go on and hide Harlander's body to eventually reveal to William at the perfect time that the creature had killed Harlander instead of him. Because kind of like Victor didn't go on and exactly help Harlander when it seems that he was sliding, but there was not much he could do either. Moving on here. So Victor goes on to put everything in place for this experiment. The body of the creature ends up getting fully charged. We'll see this fully charged emblem on this body, and we'll see kind of the innards of this body seemingly being kind of starting to work here. As Victor goes on and has this body laying down, he pulls off this this emblem that shows the full charge of this battery, and he is to check to see if this creature is alive, and it seems that it's not showing a heartbeat. Victor goes on and smashes his hand into the body, hoping that will bring this to life, and it's not working. So Victor, ever so exhausted by the entire overnighting of him needing to bring this monster to life, goes to bed. And once he wakes, after having another dark angel dream, he comes to find a creature standing above him. Victor goes on to make his way to the creature and be showing him his hands, to be opening up these blinds to show him the sun and the warmth of it, and to go on and have Victor hugging this creature to hear his heart and try as best as he can to have Victor explain who he is, that he's Victor. We'll go on and we'll have the creature who's repeatedly saying Victor, and that's the only thing that it seems that he can say for the longest point. To the point we almost are to probably think that we're going to have like a Nine Groot situation here, but we don't. So that would have been interesting if Frankenstein just feasibly just says Victor, and that's it through the entire film. Even though it doesn't make sense. Victor. So we now go on and have William and Elizabeth, who need to go on and make their way to Victor, as well as also to see if Harlander is okay. So Victor goes on and takes his creature and brings him down to a point of him chaining him up. Because of how this creature, it seems to be kind of very at an infant state, Victor is trying to go on and put chains on him because he's worried about how this monster can go on and either hurt Victor or hurt others, or yeah, there's just precautions to be made here. Plus also, Victor doesn't want this thing to get away. Because it's really not like a cat, but still. Anyways, so we have the creature that goes on and he ends up getting chained, and at some point he ends up putting this leaf on this little like water drain, and it goes just kind of making its way, and eventually we'll come back to the whole leaf thing. So Victor is to go on and have a candle here that he slowly and surely starts to blow out. So Victor is to go on and be cutting this creature's hair as it's starting to grow. Victor looks at the creature and is to see that certain aspects of his body are healing well, but we'll come to find out even further that this creature is to go on and have this healing factor. The creature goes on and grabs this razor, and he is holding it in such a manner that is to kind of be to a point where when the creature opens his hand, he has now accidentally cut himself. Victor is to complain to the creature how stupid it is that it had hurt itself, and then Victor realizes that it has healed itself. So it's like, oh, well, okay, well, you're stupid, but your body is to go on and heal itself. So, like, I guess you're not as stupid now, are you? So, the creature then goes on to hover over Victor, and that is all the more reason to our Victor is to bring back the chains and put him in another room because yeah, like this is gonna be a creature that is to be fairly intimidating and not quite sure how to exactly trust this creature. So William and Elizabeth are making their way horse and carriage to make their way to Victor. So Victor is to open his doors to both William and Elizabeth and make their way in here. So as Victor is too busy talking with William, Elizabeth will go on to explore this tower to eventually go on and find the creature. And she ends up holding hands with it. She ends up going on and talking in the simplest of terms, like as if it's a child, which is, I guess, a lot better way than the way in which that Victor is to go on and talk to this thing. So as Victor and William notice that Elizabeth is spending time with the creature, Victor goes down there and is to now show the creature to William. So, as it seems, Victor William is to notice how much Elizabeth is to seemingly be with this creature, and Elizabeth is to go on and ask Victor, like, who had hurt this creature. But if anything, Elizabeth just does not go on and quite understand what has transpired within this person, that it's just to be a reanimated corpse. And there, of course, had to go on and be several surgeries and procedures to get this thing up and going. So, here's where, of course, we are to go on and have Victor, Elizabeth, and William seemingly sleeping for the night. And Elizabeth goes on and makes her way out to again check on this creature and talk to him. The two of them go on and exchange this leaf, and Elizabeth is like, "Oh, this leaf for me? Ah!" Oh. So, as Elizabeth is continued to talk to this thing, eventually, as Elizabeth leaves, she meets with Victor. Victor is to go on and tell Elizabeth she should not be spending as much time with that thing, or she should not be spending time with it. And Elizabeth turns and says, "It? Like you're calling it an it?" And Victor is like, "Well, yeah." So we go and have Victor, who's to state that this thing doesn't have much of evidence of intelligence, and and that is to be all the more reason for this thing to be dangerous. So Victor goes on to make his way to the creature, and he wants to see the creature's leg. Victor keeps going on and saying to the creature, "Show me your leg, show me your leg." He goes on and takes this stick and continues to poke at it. The creature grabs the stick, completely bends the stick, or the metal rod, not wooden stick. It's metal rod. So here's where Victor takes William to the Harlander corpse and explain the monster had gone on to kill Harlander, and now they need to get rid of this creature and kill it before it hurts anyone else. So William and both Elizabeth are to leave for their own safety, and Victor goes on and is to get all these gas cans and pour it all over the place. Elizabeth is going on and talking to William in a horse and buggy carriage, and Elizabeth is to say that she is to be worried that she feels something so strongly that she feels that it's quite possibly they need to go back. That there's a possibility that there's going to be harm coming to that creature, and Elizabeth just can't allow it. So Victor goes on and is to gasoline this entire tower, and before he goes on and lights the match, he turns to the creature and says, "Hey, tell me something other than Victor. Say anything that would go on and be viable for me saving your life." And the creature immediately goes on to say Victor, and then Victor is just like, "Well, I guess you've just answered why I should not go on and keep you." And then the creature goes on to say Elizabeth, because both Elizabeth and him had gone on to talk, and finally the creature had said anything other than Victor. He had said Elizabeth. So after the creature goes on and says Elizabeth, Victor is like, "Well, yeah, that's why I'm going to kill you." So, because you're very, it seems, interested in this Elizabeth person than now me. So Victor goes on and torches the place, and the creature starts to burn up. We consistently have the creature crying out for Victor, and I think we get to a point where Frankenstein, like, he is so human. So to hear the cries of this creature maybe has him second guess what he's doing here. So he runs to the door, and by the time he tries to open it, the burst of flames is to be seemingly too much from this door opening. Then it flies and flings Victor to a point of him hitting this certain cement totem of a thing. Like this kind of looks like a cement kind of tombstone in a way, but not as long. But you can kind of get the gist of what I'm saying here. So Victor goes on and smashes into this cement, and we realize that he has completely destroyed his leg and had probably injured himself in a number of ways. Elizabeth makes her way back to the tower to realize that it's too late. So the next thing we go on and we see here is that Victor has kind of wrapped up his story, and now finally the creature has entered his way onto the ship and is grabbing the captain and saying, "Oh, well, Victor has gone on to tell you his story. Well, I'm going to go on and I'm going to tell you mine, because now the creature can go on and speak and has learned how uh, of course, um, know how to read and write." So now we have the creature's tale. So we go on to find that the creature had been seemingly be burning in this tower. The creature goes on and takes its metal chains and bangs it against uh, this totem to, or this kind of concrete slab of a thing, to eventually break his chains and then go into this seemingly little small bit of tunnel, or little pipeline of sorts to escape. The creature leaves the tower and falls into the water and goes on to find within this piece of woods a dead corpse just laying there, to where then the creature can grab this coat and kind of hold this skull up. So the creature makes his way to find this deer, and I'm not quite sure if this creature really needs to eat, but it seems that we finally now realize that he does eat, as well as he's sharing these berries with this deer. the deer will end up getting shot in the face. And eventually that'll lead us to certain hunters discovering said creature and not quite sure what this thing is, so they decide to start firing onto it. The creature goes on to realize that he is shot and runs away from these men, eventually make his way into this farm. The creature hides away into this farm and eventually is to find rats and all kinds of things. Or maybe not rats, maybe more mice. Regardless, it doesn't really matter. So eventually, this farming family will make their way home. So the creature is to, of course, go on and look at them off into a distance as they are to go on and talk here. Eventually, they will make their way inside this family, and we will, of course, find the blind man talking to this young girl. So the creature is to mention how he is to hope, as he is to have gone on and made it into this nearby home that has this family, that he was hoping that he would be a part of a family himself too. But yeah, that didn't exactly pan out the way he would have wanted. So the creature from off of a distance goes on and starts watching this family kind of do day to day tasks, going on and spending some time outside, going on and learning how to read and write, and learning about an eye and this and that, and so on and so forth. So eventually, the creature will realize that it seems that he can help this family by doing some of their farm day to day tasks. And because he wanted to help them, he wanted to benefit this family because he has learned to read, as well as also he has been living there in the shadows. So the family wakes up one morning to realize that there seems to be a number of resources for them to go on and use at the front of their house. Chalking this all up to the spirit of the forest, and we'd have this kid that is going on and thanking the spirit of the forest as the creatures that go on and kind of overhear this. So we would eventually come to find within this farm that there is a bit of wolves that are eventually going to come to said farm. But until that time comes, the family, it seems, is to try as best as they can to thank the creature and give him food, and like it's basically like Santa Claus. And the creature goes on and finds these certain bits of food and flour and so on and so forth, and just be very happy. So again, we go on here and have the wolves making their way into this farm, and they break through this fence and start killing these people's sheep. So the creature is to start very much understand about these animals, and how the creature was to kind of be kind of treated in a similar manner. But anyways, so as the sheep are to go on and die, and the one father is to look over one of the sheep and just kind of be distraught, we would go on to have the family and blind man separate. They kind of go their separate ways, probably because of the whole wolves and how they could probably be in danger by staying there. But the blind man is like, well, I'm just going to stay here and just chill. So The creature goes on and assumes that the family had all gone, so the creature kind of just stumbles into the house, and that's where both blind man and creature start talking. So the blind man goes on and asks this creature, "Hey, where have you gone? Or how have you? Why have you come here?" And the creature is to go on and say that it is traveling, and so it's like, "Oh, okay." So the two of them go on and they start talking here. Eventually, they'll exchange books for the creature to start reading, and so we would go on have the creature who's to kind of learn a certain number of books that people may go on and be familiar with. So the creature goes on with the blind man outside to find out that it's snowing. And this is the very first ever snow that the creature has ever seen. And so the blind man and creature are going on, and the two of them are talking. And the creature will go on to mention how, like, he has certain memories that he doesn't feel are to be quite his. As well as also the creature is to go on to realize that there's to be one thing of memory that he needs to kind of go back to, which is feasibly just Victor at this point. And so the creature goes on and makes his way backpedaling back to the tower and goes on to find Victor's notes, coming to find out that this creature was just a random assortment of parts and was to be not as valued to Victor other than just being this experiment to hope that he's going to go on and get some renowned fame from all this. So, as the creature is to have gone on and read, or to have read his maker's notes and see the picture of what he is to go on and look like, the creature makes his way on back to the blind man, and he'll eventually find that there are wolves to meet him there. The creature goes on and faces off against these wolves, and again, this is where I guess the action would go on and pick back up. So, the blind man is to go on and still be alive, as the creature is to grab the blind man and talk to him before he seemingly dies. The creature talks to the blind man about what Victor really thought of him, but there is a realization that Victor needs to make, or that the creature, excuse me, needs to make his way back to Victor, because it's the only thing that he knows. So, as we would come to find that the hunters are to make their way back into the hunters are to make their way into the blind man's place and start to shoot at the creature and lead the creature outside of this house, because these guys are to possibly assume that this creature could have been the one giving this guy's death, even though there obviously is wolves here, doesn't really matter. So the creature goes on and gets shot, and the creature goes on to state that he didn't know exactly how long he was dead for, but if anyways he was temporarily dead. The creature goes on and wakes up at some certain point to realize that his wounds have all been healed. So we have Victor that's going on again, seeing his dark angel while he's dreaming, and so he is to go on and wake up, put his prosthetic leg on, and be talking to William. So We, of course, have to push on here that William and Elizabeth are going to get married here. So they're celebrating, they're going on and getting to the point of Elizabeth and William getting married. So we're kind of building to that. So Victor goes on and sees Elizabeth in her wedding gown and then goes on to make his way back into his own room. Victor feels that there is something to be off, so much so that he is to go on and say it within the room to say, hey, I know that you're there, so if you are, just show yourself. So the creature goes on to appear and is to go on and ask Victor for a companion. Because the creature is to go on and realize that he is to probably live forever, and so he needs a companion that is to share that same ability. Victor is to want to go on and not to really hear exactly this creature out because he honestly does not give a fuck. So, uh, as Victor does not go on and really care to give this creature a companion, the creature is to go on and say, hey, well, you know what? If you will not grant me the thing to love, then I will go on and deliver you rage. And so Victor starts to go on and throw around Victor, which of course goes on to lead to Elizabeth uh, finding out that the creature is back, and the two of them start to have an exchange between one another while Victor is getting his gun. Victor whips his gun out, and the creature ends up going on and having Elizabeth kind of as a shield here. So Victor is to want to try to go on and hope that a bullet will kill this creature, and by accident, instead, he shoots Elizabeth. So we would then have the creature who is going on and taking Elizabeth and carrying her out because he does care for her. And eventually, this leads to the creature facing off, I believe, against William. William ends up going on to get taken out here, and eventually he dies. Victor goes on and is with William right before that is to happen, and William is to go on and tell Victor how horrible Victor really has been, and how, if anything, he's the villain of this story. So, Victor goes on and takes Elizabeth to seemingly this cave, and Victor is to go on and follow. The two of them fight. We have at a certain point where, yeah, like, man, does Victor kind of get pretty beaten up here. So, since Victor is to have a loss of his brother and now Elizabeth, that gives Victor all the revenge he is to go on and need to go against this creature and chase after him as the two of them make their way into the snow. And so the next thing we see is just a Victor who has gone on and had these this sled and sled dogs, and Victor is trying to track down this creature, which goes on to lead us right back to the point of eventually where Victor is to meet with the North Pole Ash-like people who had gotten stuck in the ice. But right before that exactly happens, we have one more battle between both Victor and Creature, which will go on and have Victor be fighting this certain shop. Victor goes on and asks for certain resources and dynamite. And so when Victor is to go on and meet up with the creature again, he has dynamite. The creature goes on and takes the stick of dynamite from Victor and is like, "Oh, you have dynamite now? Well, you know what? How about you light this stick of dynamite? I'm going to allow you to do this. I'll hold the dynamite and you'll run away. And if this piece of dynamite does go on and do me in, then then I guess this is the end between the two of us. But if it does nothing, then I'm coming after you." So Victor runs away as this explosion, of course, does not go on and kill this creature. Because, of course, healing factor. So this goes, of course, back to again where I said before how Victor is to be found kind of laying in the snow to be found by this crew, and we're now back to the wrapping up of the second story. So, creature is to go on and talk to Victor, and between the two of them, we have this moment where Victor is to realize kind of what a schmuck he was and how stupid he was, and how Victor is to go on to realize that the creature is to be his son. And Victor is hoping before he dies for this creature to forgive him. And it seems that the creature does go on and forgive him because this guy is kind of dying anyways. So Victor does go on and does die, and the captain and creature make their way out of the ship to where it seems that the people are to go on and start holding up their guns, unsure about what is happening. The captain grabs one of the guns away from the people. It's like, "Hey, stop, 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 stop. Like, we didn't understand what was going on. Now we do. So, like, let's just stop all this." So the creature goes on to make his way off of this ship and then takes the ship, pushes it back on to the waters for them to just leave. And so the captain's idea is to just go on and go back home at this point because this adventure of them trying to discover the North Pole, like, he has completely lost all interest in it. And so, hey, let's just go on home. So the last thing we end up seeing in this film is the creature going on and making his way to the sunrise, going on and presenting himself to the warmth of the sun, like Victor had gone on to do to the creature when the two of them first met when he was alive, and again hovering over him at his bedside, Victor. So really, that's just the way that this movie goes on and finishes up. This movie was 2 hours and 20 or 30 some odd minutes, and luckily I had to just wrap it up in an hour and a half. Wow, that's nice. Uh, I'm sure a lot of people would be like, "This could have been a lot shorter." I'm like, whatever. Like, in all honesty, I don't think I got the huge chunk of details because with this one, it was very hard for me to find the perfect amount of subtitles, and also like the images weren't exactly all that crisp either. So it's just kind of like, man, this is kind of rough to want to go on it and check out this film. But regardless, at least this is reviewed. So there is that for you. Hopefully you'll go on and check out this review because that'll definitely help out this channel. But at least you'll go on and find out what this movie is about and maybe to either avoid it or just wait till it comes out later in streaming, because I would not rush to see this film because you've probably already seen it at some point in your life. Plus, also, the Christian Bale Frankenstein movie is a thing that I'm going to go on and probably check out also. So if you guys are going to go on and want to have more Frankenstein movies in the future, I may go on and do that as well, because I'm rather interested in it. I think that movie is to be called The Bride. I think it's that Maggie Gyllenhaal project. So I probably will go on and feel that I should probably check that out. I don't know really what it's gonna really feel like, besides maybe like a Bonnie and Clyde kind of project. I'm not quite sure. I saw the trailer, but I'm like, I don't really know what this is. So other than that, yeah, like hopefully I will go on and still do some certain horror projects beyond, obviously now, that it is well past Halloween. I could just say that I'm just trying to put my best foot forward in this channel and hope for the best. So thank you for watching this, because it does help me. I hope that this video helps you to determine whether or not you should viably check out this movie, because that's all I was to really just do this channel for, is to help out people. And hopefully me sharing my knowledge can go on and benefit people, because that's all I ever wanted to do this for, was to just, hey guys, I know about this movie, do you know about it too? Or if you don't, then I can help you in the best way understand and get my own personal opinion about whether this movie is good or bad or not. And some people will probably go on and have a way different opinion upon this movie than I personally do. And like, if I say that this movie is bad and someone else is like, no, man, this is a 10 out of 10, then let me know your opinions. Maybe I'm to go on and I'm going to be completely wrong about a movie like this. I know at some certain points I'd gone on and reviewed certain things that people actually liked, and they were to go on and say it's like, well, no, man, like your opinion is wrong. Like you need to go on and rewatch this movie again and again and again until you have my opinion. I was like, I, if I go on and I watch this movie multiple times, I'm probably gonna be like, man, like this movie is even more hated by me, or more whatever. Um, but I think over time, there are certain movies that I have gone on and seen more than once that I have warmed up to. And maybe Frankenstein 2025 may go on and eventually be that, but I could not be bothered to invest that kind of time, because the way of channel, I am just consistently seeing just different projects all the time. I wish I could have the time to rewatch stuff, but I just don't. Unless it's a thing that I haven't gone on and done for the channel that I have already seen, which happens way too often, more than I'd want to admit to. But but I'm also trying as much as possible to watch newer content and new releases. Which new releases, yeah, like I think this really tells you why exactly I don't go on and I don't cover new releases all that often, because there's way more new releases that I need to go on and moan and groan about. And I want to try to find stuff that is to be hidden gems, or is to be just like, man, there is some potential there. And I could feel much more rewarded by going on and doing a past movie than this new fresh stuff, because you kind of know where all these new fresh projects are going on, and just kind of clickbaiting you into them. And then also, the reason for me going on and even deciding to do this project after seeing all the other Frankenstein movies was just because Frankenstein, it seems, was to have told me that it is popular. So I kind of felt that I'm like, well, like I need to do this because because logically, YouTube is telling me to. Not that I really wanted to go on and probably see this movie once it's to be almost exactly like another film that I've seen recently. That was to go on and just be like, yeah, once I was to kind of get into the last 30 or 40 minutes of this film, I was really tempted to just be like, do I really need to see what's going on in this movie, scene for scene, blow for blow? Because it's very similar to the other film. Uh, but if anything, also, the other film I feel was just writing wise delivered better. But again, I'm going to keep having that same gripe over and over again, so I apologize. I'm going to get that out of here so I can upload this video for today. Also, uh, I am going on and having a certain volume boosting app be slightly tweakingly different than prior. So, for any reason, if the volume in this specific video is to be way louder than any prior video, or uh, it's to go on and be quieter than prior videos, that is to honestly be why. I'm trying to figure out in any way what is to be the best possible course of action of doing that, because it's bizarrely has changed. Plus, also, I don't know about volume boosting apps anymore. I felt that I had a definitive feel of what to do for them to just make the volume sound better. But maybe, if anything, maybe it sounds worse. That's maybe why people don't go on and watch these films or watch these reviews for a very lengthy amount of time. I don't know anymore. And then also, I'm just like, dude, I'm just gonna keep working. I'm just gonna keep doing these things and hope for the best. Plus, also, when I don't get responses or comments of anybody having complaints about anything, then I just keep going about my business, as it's to go on and just be like, okay, I think people were probably fine with this. It seems that a number of people tuned in to so and so video or so and so project, so I think it's okay. I don't know. But otherwise, thank you for watching this, because I do appreciate it. I really do. Like, I really am to try and probably repeat myself way too often. But uh, for anybody who's going on and really also knowing my love of the supernatural Esh-like projects, uh, like, if anything, that is to be all the more reason for me wanting to check this out, because it's a supernatural project, regardless of how I ultimately felt about it. So, with that said, goodbye, everybody. Bye, everybody.